Have you ever had a moment with someone that was so awkward, yet so charged with unspoken tension that you couldn't stop thinking about it for days? Well, that's exactly what happened to me last week with my roommate, and I'm still trying to process it all. I've been sharing an apartment with Jake for almost 8 months now. We met through a mutual friend who knew we were both looking for a place, and financially, it made sense to split the rent on a 2-bedroom rather than struggle alone. Jake is what you'd call your typical straight guy. He plays basketball on weekends, watches sports religiously, and has a rotating cast of female dates that occasionally make appearances at our apartment. I, on the other hand, came out as gay in college and have been living openly ever since. When we first moved in together, I was a bit concerned about how a straight guy might react to having a gay roommate, but Jake seemed completely unfazed by it. He's always been respectful, never making me feel uncomfortable or different, and we quickly developed a solid friendship. Our apartment isn't huge, but it's comfortable enough for 2 people. We have a modest living room with a couch that's seen better days, a coffee table perpetually covered in takeout menus, and a TV that Jake insisted we needed to upgrade to the largest size our budget could accommodate. The kitchen opens to the living room in that modern open-concept style that makes small apartments feel less claustrophobic. It's become our routine to cook dinner together a few nights a week. Nothing fancy, just simple meals that save us both money and provide an opportunity to catch up on our days. But last Friday night, something happened that has completely thrown off our comfortable roommate dynamic, and I'm still trying to figure out what it meant. I'm going to tell you everything, from the build-up to the aftermath, because I honestly need to get this off my chest, and maybe someone out there has experienced something similar and can offer some insight. So here's what happened when my straight roommate decided to sit on my lap as a joke, and then, inexplicably, didn't move. Before I dive into the incident itself, I should probably give you a better sense of my relationship with Jake. Despite our different sexual orientations, we've become pretty close friends. We share a similar sense of humor, slightly inappropriate and heavy on sarcasm. We've developed inside jokes that would make absolutely no sense to outsiders, and we've gotten comfortable enough to playfully tease each other about almost anything. Jake often jokes about my meticulous cleaning habits, while I give him grief about his inability to remember to take out the trash. It's all in good fun, and neither of us has ever crossed any lines that made the other uncomfortable. We also hang out quite a bit outside of the apartment. We've gone to movies together, grabbed beers at local bars, and even attended a few concerts. Jake has introduced me to his friends, who have all been surprisingly welcoming, and I've brought him along to meet my friend group as well. There's never been any weirdness or tension, until now, that is. The day of the incident started like any other Friday. We both worked from home, as we often do at the end of the week. Jake was in his room on calls for most of the day, while I was at the dining table working on some design projects. By late afternoon, we were both ready for the weekend to begin. Jake suggested we order pizza and watch a movie, a pretty standard Friday night activity for us. I agreed and went to take a quick shower while he placed the order. When I came back to the living room, freshly showered and wearing comfortable clothes, Jake was already on the couch scrolling through Netflix options. He had changed into sweatpants and a t-shirt that was just a little too tight, something I noticed but tried not to dwell on. The pizza arrived about 20 minutes later, and we settled in for our movie night, each of us on opposite ends of the couch as usual. We decided on some action movie that neither of us was particularly invested in, but it served as background entertainment while we ate and chatted. Jake was telling me about this girl he'd been texting who kept sending mixed signals, and I was half listening, half watching the excessive explosions on screen. We were about halfway through both the movie and the pizza when Jake got up to grab beers from the fridge. When he returned, instead of sitting back in his spot, he hovered near my end of the couch with this mischievous grin that immediately made me suspicious. "What?" I asked, already bracing myself for whatever was coming. Without warning, he plopped down directly on my lap, causing me to let out an involuntary oof as his weight settled on me. "Dude, what are you doing?" I laughed, assuming he'd immediately get up, but he didn't. Instead, he adjusted himself to get comfortable, leaning back slightly against my chest, and said, "Just messing with you, man. Your face right now is priceless." I was indeed probably making quite the expression, a mixture of shock, amusement, and confusion. This type of physical joke wasn't entirely out of character for Jake. He's always been physically comfortable around me, throwing an arm around my shoulders, play wrestling over the remote, that sort of thing. But sitting on my lap? That was definitely new territory. I expected him to laugh it off and move back to his side of the couch within seconds. That's how these jokes usually went. A quick moment of invasion of personal space followed by a retreat and mutual laughter. But seconds passed, and Jake remained firmly planted on my lap. His attention seemingly returned to the movie as if nothing unusual was happening. I wasn't sure what to do with my hands. They were awkwardly hovering at my sides, not knowing where to land. I couldn't push him off without making it weird, but the longer he stayed, the weirder it already was becoming. The weight of him was both uncomfortable and, well, not entirely unpleasant, which confused me even more. My heart was racing, and I was hyper-aware of every point of contact between us. Comfortable, I finally managed to say, trying to keep my tone light and joking. Jake glanced back at me with that same grin and replied, "Very. You make a great chair." And then he just continued watching the movie. I could smell his shampoo and feel the warmth radiating from his body. The casual intimacy of the moment was so unexpected that I found myself holding my breath at times, afraid that any movement might break whatever strange spell had fallen over us. Let me explain why this matters so much in the context of our relationship. Jake and I had always maintained a certain physical distance that felt appropriate for our situation. We weren't the types of roommates who avoided all contact. We'd high-five or fist bump, and occasionally there'd be an encouraging pat on the back, but we definitely didn't cuddle up on the couch together. So this sudden crossing of an unspoken boundary left me completely bewildered. As the minutes ticked by, and yes, it was minutes, not seconds, I became increasingly aware of how this might look to an outsider. A straight guy sitting on his gay roommate's lap for an extended period wasn't exactly a common roommate activity. Was this some kind of test? Was he trying to show me how comfortable he was with my sexuality? Or was there something else going on that I wasn't picking up on? The most confusing part was my own reaction. I wasn't uncomfortable in the way I should have been. In fact, there was a part of me that was enjoying the closeness, which made me feel guilty. Jake was my straight roommate and friend. I had never thought of him in any other way, or at least, I had actively tried not to. But in that moment, with him casually sitting on my lap as if it were the most natural thing in the world, I couldn't help but wonder if there was something more to this joke. After what felt like an eternity, but was probably about 5 minutes, Jake finally shifted and stood up. He stretched casually, grabbed another slice of pizza, and returned to his side of the couch without acknowledging what had just happened. The movie continued playing, but I couldn't focus on it anymore. My mind was racing, replaying those minutes over and over, trying to decipher what they meant. The rest of the evening passed in a blur. We finished the movie, made some generic comments about how mediocre it was, and then Jake said he was tired and headed to his room. I stayed on the couch for a while longer, staring blankly at the TV, now showing the Netflix homepage, trying to process everything. The next morning, I half expected things to be awkward between us, but Jake acted completely normal. He was making coffee when I emerged from my room, and he greeted me with his usual morning, man, before asking if I wanted some. We went about our Saturday as if nothing unusual had happened the night before. He didn't mention the lap-sitting incident, and I didn't have the courage to bring it up. But even though outwardly everything seemed normal, I could feel a subtle shift in our dynamic. There was a new awareness between us, at least on my part. I found myself noticing things I'd previously ignored or dismissed. The way Jake would casually touch my shoulder when talking to me, how his eyes would sometimes linger on mine a beat longer than necessary, the fact that he seemed to find reasons to be in whatever room I was in. Or maybe I was just projecting, seeing what I wanted to see because of my own confused feelings. That's the thing about unspoken moments like these. They leave so much room for interpretation and misinterpretation. Without direct communication, we're left to analyze gestures and expressions, trying to read between lines that might not even exist. In the days that followed, I found myself analyzing every interaction we'd ever had, looking for clues I might have missed. Had there always been this undercurrent of something between us? Or was this truly just a joke that I was reading too much into because of my own attraction that I hadn't fully acknowledged until now? I started paying more attention to how Jake interacted with his other male friends when they came over. Was he as physically comfortable with them as he was with me? The answer seemed to be no. He didn't casually touch them or stand quite as close. But did that mean anything? Maybe he was just more comfortable with me because we lived together and had developed a closer friendship. About 3 days after the incident, as I'd started referring to it in my head, Jake and I were in the kitchen making dinner together. We were moving around each other with the practiced ease of people who have shared a space for months, when he reached across me for the salt and let his hand rest on my lower back for a moment. It was such a small gesture, something that could easily be dismissed as necessary contact in a confined space, but it felt deliberate. And when I looked up at him, he held my gaze for a moment before smiling and returning to the stove. That night, as I lay in bed staring at the ceiling, I decided I needed to stop overthinking and just talk to him. Clear communication is always the best approach, right? But what exactly would I say? Hey, remember when you sat on my lap for an extended period of time? What was that about? The potential for awkwardness was astronomical, especially if I had misread the entire situation. The opportunity to talk came sooner than I expected. The following evening, we were both home early from work, and Jake suggested we have a beer on our small balcony. It was one of those perfect early summer evenings, warm but not hot, with a gentle breeze that made sitting outside particularly pleasant. We were on our second beers when Jake suddenly said, "Can I ask you something?" My heart immediately started racing. Was he going to bring up the lap incident? Had he noticed my confusion and analysis of our every interaction since? I managed a casual "sure, what's up?" while gripping my beer bottle a little tighter. "How did you know you were gay?" he asked, his eyes fixed on the view from our balcony rather than on me. The question caught me off guard. It wasn't what I was expecting, but it felt somehow connected to everything that had been happening. I took a moment to gather my thoughts before answering. I told him about always feeling different growing up, about the confusing feelings in high school, and about the moment in college when I finally accepted who I was and came out. He listened attentively, asking thoughtful questions that showed he was genuinely interested in understanding my experience. When I finished, there was a comfortable silence between us. Then Jake said, "I've never really questioned my sexuality before. I've always just assumed I was straight because that's what everyone expected, and I've been attracted to women." He paused, taking a swig of his beer. "But lately, I've been wondering if maybe it's not that simple." And there it was, the conversation I hadn't known how to start but desperately needed to have. Jake wasn't explicitly referencing the lap incident, but he was opening a door to discuss the shifting dynamic between us. I decided to be brave and walk through it. "Does this have anything to do with what happened the other night, when you sat on my lap?" I asked, my voice steadier than I expected it to be. Jake finally turned to look at me, and I could see a vulnerability in his expression that I'd never noticed before. "Yeah, I guess it does," he admitted. I played it off as a joke because I wasn't ready to acknowledge what I was feeling. But the truth is, I've been confused about my feelings for you for a while now. That night, I just acted on impulse, and then I didn't want to move because it felt right, somehow. I was stunned into silence. All my analysis and overthinking, and I still hadn't prepared myself for the possibility that Jake might actually have feelings for me. It was both exhilarating and terrifying. Exhilarating because I had finally admitted to myself that I was attracted to him, and terrifying because this could completely change our living situation and friendship. "I don't know what this means," Jake continued when I didn't immediately respond. "I'm still trying to figure it out myself. But I wanted to be honest with you." Finding my voice, I told him that I appreciated his honesty and that I'd been confused about my own feelings too. We agreed that we needed to take things slow and be careful not to jeopardize our friendship or make our living arrangement uncomfortable. We didn't come to any definitive conclusions that night, but the air had been cleared and the unspoken tension had been acknowledged. In the weeks since that conversation, things between Jake and I have been evolving. We're more open with each other, more honest about our feelings and thoughts. There have been more moments of physical closeness, intentional ones now, not disguised as jokes, and we're slowly exploring what this new dimension of our relationship might look like. I don't know where this is heading. Jake is still coming to terms with his sexuality, and I'm cautious about getting too invested in someone who might be going through a temporary phase of questioning. But there's something undeniably special about the connection we've developed, something that goes beyond roommate compatibility or casual friendship. What I've learned from this experience is that human connections and sexuality are far more complex and fluid than we often acknowledge. Sometimes it takes an unexpected moment, like your straight roommate sitting on your lap as a joke and not moving, to force you to confront feelings and possibilities you've been ignoring. If you've ever found yourself in a similar situation of unspoken tension and confusing signals with someone close to you, my advice would be to find the courage to have those difficult conversations. The uncertainty of not knowing is often more agonizing than whatever truth you might discover. And sometimes, like in my case, that truth might open the door to something beautiful that you never saw coming. As for Jake and me, we're taking it day by day, learning to navigate this new territory together. Whether we end up as just friends with a funny story to tell, or something more meaningful develops between us, I'm grateful for that awkward, confusing moment on the couch that forced us both to be honest about our feelings. Sometimes the most significant changes in our lives begin with the smallest, seemingly inconsequential moments, like a roommate sitting on your lap and not moving. Total_count, 13,946.